Or good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when it finds you. Just want to talk for a minute today, give you a little historical concept and context as to why certain things have happened in our communities as a culture of people. See, we never see in any of our Bibles that the serpent ever messed with or talked with Adam. The attack in almost every case comes through a woman, the man's woman. When you come at the man's weakness, it becomes much easier to destroy the family relationship. And whoever controls your family controls your future. See, the serpent used Eve to destroy Adam. The serpent used Delilah to destroy Samson. The serpent used Jezebel to destroy Ahab. Lot lost his wife because she was more in tune with the world than she was with Lot and God. How do we get to where we are as a people morally? We love to quote Mary McLeod Bethune when she said the true worth of a race is measured by its woman. But our women don't like to take any blame when they do wrong. When a child does well and a mother was the only parent in the house with him or her, she loves to tell everybody how she did it all on her own. When a child is in a home with a mother as the only parent and the child does bad, she always loves to tell the story that she was trying to do it all by herself and it's the child's daddy who caused the situation. And as one of my sisters told me, there's no such thing as a single parent. The woman is receiving assistance from somewhere, be it child support or government support. And in both cases, there's an absentee parent that is present financially. Why don't we as a people promote family values anymore? I mean, I still get called old fashioned. I was told I was old fashioned by one of my closest buddies when I got to college and played football. He said, "Man, you old." And it's just because we've gotten away from traditional values. Why don't we want to see our young men grow into productive men anymore? Why don't we encourage our young ladies to want to be feminine in their roles anymore? Why are we so twisted in our thought process as a people? We're now actually promoting men becoming feminine and we're promoting women become masculine. And at one time, a great majority of our men did actually love their women, and our women actually respected our men. This happened even after the atrocity of slavery. Then something happened. The system saw this, and it became a problem for them. You see, the whole idea of everything the system did to our ancestors was to break us as a people. So the system went to work to do whatever it could to destroy the black family. It started first with the formation of the Black Boule and then the NAACP. And just so you know, the etymology of the word Boule means advisor to the king. Now, do a little research and you'll find out who the kings were when that was formulated or whatever, however you want to say it. You know, I'm going to say this again, every black leader that has been placed in front of us to lead us has been put there by white supremacy because they knew these particular guys were toe the line for white America. Booker T. Washington wasn't put there. Booker T. Washington worked his way into leadership, and we see how black folks treated him, especially when W.E.B. Du Bois told black folks how they should feel about it. Most blacks don't know that the reason it took so long to pass any anti-lynching bill was because the government would only pass it if black leadership would agree to trade black intelligence to them as a compromise. And back during that time, with Du Bois and NAACP and the Boule, there was a guy named Alan Locke. And Alan Locke was actually the first ever black recipient of the Cecil Rhodes Scholarship. Y'all know Cecil Rhodes, the one that went over there and plundered Africa. And then historians tried to, and apologists tried to make it seem like he was such benevolent by offering these scholarships after all wealth he had stolen out of Africa. But Locke was the first recipient of the Cecil Rhodes Scholarship. And he said something. I'm going to pull this quote that he said. "We hope the white man delivers because we crushed a great black thing. But we know he'll deliver or our people will attack and plague us forevermore." Now, see, Locke was speaking, that was the end quote. Locke was speaking of what he and Du Bois had done to Marcus Garvey, the Marcus Garvey movement, at the hand of whites. They, along with the rest of the black boule, were hoping if they did the bidding for white America would actually return a few scraps back to the black people that they had already stolen out of Africa. And Garvey was saying, let's go back to Africa and claim our own resources. And these guys were saying, let's hope white America gives us some of the scraps of what they stole from our people already. And see, then what happened, the NAACP introduced our men to white women. Now, hey, I don't care who you marry. Marry who you want to. That's not what this is about. This is bigger than anything you think. They use the vice of sex to go after our men. And I remember reading something a black guy said around the year 1908. And he stated that he wanted everything the white man had, which included his wealth, his home, his car, and his prized possession, his woman. And see, the purpose of introducing our black men to white women was so the white women could report back to white men on every financial move our black men were making with regards to business ownership and entrepreneurial activities. And see, as I stated, this is bigger than anything you think it is. And see, Booker T. Washington was a major impediment to what they were trying to accomplish because he was encouraging the very two things the system was trying to destroy in black America. The NAACP was formed in 1909, and its sole purpose was to destroy black business, black economics, and keep an eye on everything that black men were doing, black men and families were doing. And that was actually a book I read years ago that actually said that the plan was to infiltrate black businesses, through threats and their wives. And I can't remember the name of the book right off the top of my head. But when that didn't work, they employed a task of sending white women to get close to the black men who owned businesses. The women were instructed to act like they loved our black men and even give them a couple of children to solidify the thought. Then after the business plans had been revealed to the woman, the wheels started to turn to destroy their businesses because the woman went back and reported to the white men what was going on. And so once they started letting these white masters of theirs tell them, they started revealing the plans back to their white masters, then the white and the black businesses started hurting. The white masters told the white women, oh, you can divorce those black men now, and we'll make them pay child support. We'll make them pay alimony since you haven't been working. And the whole objective behind that was another way to break black men financially, since they wouldn't cower under the threat of force. They used white women to accomplish it that way first. And then they still ran into a problem because a lot of the black men wasn't falling for that. And so when they couldn't get a lot of black men to fall for white women, they used white women to accuse black men of raping them so they can now come in and with their buddies and destroy the thriving black communities. I mean, look at the year the NAACP was formed. Who formed it? The year Booker T. Washington died, and everything that transpired just a few years after his passing. I mean, look at it. How many thriving black communities were destroyed between the years 1915 and 1925? And there's a young black lady named Kimberly Jane Wilson. I read this from her years ago. Alarmed by the numbers of Southern blacks who were migrating to northern cities, Margaret Sanger and her associates created the Negro Project. They believed that by convincing black people to limit the size of their families, they would prevent the black population's numbers from overwhelming those of the white population. It was assumed that blacks, they especially worried about the men, would look suspiciously on any white effort to meddle with their fertility. So a clever fiction was created. Black elites, doctors, educators, and even ministers were enlisted to preach contraception and later abortion. Black people were told that if they just learned to limit the size of their families, whites would come to respect them for their self-control. One day, this fiction said this respect would lead to greater civil rights for blacks. In other words, fewer black children would equal more freedom, end quote. And see, even those events weren't enough. We got a new black leader who's in love with a white woman who was chosen to lead us to the promised land. You see, Coretta Scott King was a secondary love interest for Martin Luther King because they didn't feel like blacks would accept him as a leader while he was in love with and dating a white woman named Betty Moitz. So here comes the Great Society, the feminist movement, and the civil rights movement, the three braided cord for the destruction of black America. The civil rights plan was also put in place to destroy black business and black economics. You got to study this stuff. You see a pattern yet? Who founded the NAACP? Who funded the civil rights movement? Who funded the feminist movement? And when these three things took place, the black woman went from the black man's helper and completer to the black man's competition. And since that decade, our black women have been competing with black men, or trying to anyway. We complain about poverty in our society. And in a lot of cases, when a divorce rate increases, so does poverty. After this decade, the government then told our women that they needed to pursue careers because there was no man in the picture to care for her and her children. They told them that men and women were equal, and in order to pursue those careers, they needed to kill their babies because babies consumed the resources they were trying to earn. And because there was now no dad in the picture, many of our young boys inherited feminine characteristics, with some going into full-fledged homosexuality, which was actually described as a disease in the early 1970s. The pimp culture exploded in our communities. The drug epidemic exploded in our communities. The incarceration rate exploded in our communities. Yet, we claim we made progress. We have multiple children by multiple partners, and one of our family units are all jacked up. Before all of the feminist gains, if you can really call it that, our families actually had both parents in the home at around 80% of the time. 80% of our families had both parents in the home. And then we allowed white women to come in and manipulate us into getting rid of our men while they stayed with theirs. While they stayed with their men, our women left their men. Do you know what this does to the opportunity to create wealth and stability and principles and values? One of the reasons the wealth gap has grown between the races is because white women stayed with their men, which gives a greater chance of creating wealth. And these same white women encourage our women to go at it alone. Now look at what happened. Our women put their men out on the street listening to their so-called feminist counterparts. The moment they did this, our families suffered financially, morally, spiritually, emotionally, and paternally. Then our women had to put the children in daycare because now they had to go and find jobs. Daycare cost money, so that cut into the income that she was bringing in. A woman still has physical needs, so now she brought home total strangers around her children, while at the same time keeping their fathers away from them. Some of these men were predators, and they started messing with the woman's children, boys and girls. And what happened then was we saw an exponential rise in homosexuality and hypersexuality within our culture because someone misconstrued sexual perversion to our children as love. Feminist was considered positive. Every time we look around, there is some woman somewhere complaining about toxic masculinity. I was actually watching Wonder Woman, not the modern one, the one I grew up on. And there was an episode on it. She was talking about Paradise Island, where she came from. And Paradise Island, for those of you that know or don't know, it was a place where only women live. And Wonder Woman said it was a place that wasn't hampered by toxic masculinity. And no men were ever allowed on that island. And see, they had already started programming the minds decades ago about toxic masculinity. Now, based on everything I've said up to this point, which group of men are the real toxic ones? You see, for women to be born, somebody had to have some male interaction somewhere, some male companionship somewhere. It just so happened that this series of Wonder Woman came right about after the heyday of the feminist movement. You know, it's amazing that feminists can call something toxic when a lot of their behavior has become even more toxic. If a man espouses godly principles and moral values, he gets vilified in today's society. A guy had his camera phone recording. This is something I was watching the other day. He had his camera phone recording and was holding the door for a woman to enter. He wanted to see what would happen if he held the door for this woman. And the woman went off on him because she said she could open the door for herself and she didn't need no man holding it for her. You know, it's sad that in this world we now live in, when a man shows a degree of respect, he gets ostracized and humiliated. I showed my wife how she should be treated by me. I showed my granddaughter how a man should treat her. When I visited my sister in Seattle, I catered to her. And after I left, she said she told her female friends about the things I did. And one of her friends told her I was a fake because men, especially black men, don't do those things. And I told her I can predict one thing about that friend. She said, what's that? I said, she's single and can't stay in a relationship long term. She said, how did you know that? I said, because that's the behavior of a woman who doesn't know how to be properly treated. So she criticizes men all the time, and that's why she can't keep one. And see, because of these prevalent attitudes from lots of women, more men are deciding to stay alone and not pursue or even desire marriage anymore. Why would a man want to enter into a relationship with a woman who is going to do nothing but complain, be a source of misery every time he comes home? Women set standards in place on what a man should bring to the table, but they take issue with men who come to the table with their own set of standards. They want a man to jump through all of these hoops to be with them, I mean. If a man says, I want you to meet these parameters, the woman wants to know why the man can't accept her as she is. A lot of women complain about not being able to find a good man. Well, a lot of good men have approached them, and they immediately pushed him into the friend zone because he was too vanilla, plain and boring. When a lot of women are in their 20s, they want bad boys. They want exciting boys. They want party boys. You know the type. And once they get used up by those type of guys, they want a good man to step in and take care of those children that were produced with those men who had no intent of ever being family oriented. Then many of them have the nerve to put conditions on the good men if they want to get with them. I've seen lots, and I mean lots of situations where man and woman meet, and a couple of weeks later she lets him move into her house. That is one thing good men don't do. They have their own place. They will not move in with a woman. But them no good dudes, the party dudes, the exciting dudes, always do stuff like that. The dudes that just got out of prison always do stuff like that. And sadly, this is who men and women choose. And these same women have no shame in stating that a man must accept them the way they are. They all of a sudden want the vanilla man. They all of a sudden have standards. They want the vanilla man, the boring man, the man who doesn't run around seeking to devour every woman he meets. They want the boring man who doesn't have a boatload of children by multiple women. They want the boring man, the vanilla man who has a stable job, who doesn't party, who wants to provide. It's amazing that many of these women who are financially strapped want a man who is financially stable at this point to come in and take care of them and their children that the actual fathers are not providing for. They have given the best years of their physical youth to men who have used them up, and they want the new man to be happy to get a pre-owned product years down the road. Pre-owned is the term we use today, but what we used to say was used. And a lot of them have the nerve to criticize the man who refuses to look their way. Another thing these women do? They will carry the full term a baby for a no good dude, thinking that's going to keep him around. But they will abort a baby for the good man, claiming choice. My body, my choice. Many people in society claim that abortion is a woman's right. Many in society claim that women in Africa are backwards. Who told you Africa was so backwards? You know who did? The colonizers who have went there and plundered the land. And guess who is now trying to impose abortion on the continent of Africa? Colonizers. Women in Africa are calling it cultural supremacy. They're offering those countries over there boatloads of money to implement abortion. And one thing you're going to hardly find black women in Africa doing is aborting their babies. You know, Bill Gates even went over there, and that was part of what he was trying to accomplish with all those sterilization vaccines. See, he didn't tell the people in the continent that was sterilant in the vaccine. He just told them it was for disease, but it had sterilization components inside the vaccine, so they couldn't produce children anymore. I'm going to read you something I read in an article from July 2017. Western governments are spitting in the face of African democracy by trying to impose legal abortion against the wishes of most people in such countries, said a Nigerian-born pro-life campaigner. Her name is Uju Ekioka, the founder of the Culture of Life Africa, a UK-based pro-life group. And she said wealthy nations pumping money into the promotion and funding of abortions in Africa were behaving like old colonial masters. None of these countries has asked for this aid money, she told CNS in a July 10th telephone interview. In all my work with African countries, I don't know of any which is screaming, come and help us. We have this abortion crisis, said Ekioka, a Catholic who has dual citizenship in Britain and Nigeria. But a lot of Western countries, in the spirit of cultural supremacy, are still trying to impose abortion in this way. In another interview from March 15, 2019, Ekioka said, Western nations are involved in what she called a form of ideological colonization, imposing their own views and values on poor nations who don't share. Because most African nations do not permit abortion, the assumption is that Africans are being denied abortions. End quote. Now, so how do these black women get it over there, but our black women over here place no value on life of their own flesh and blood? See, sisters, a lot of men accept you, even with the children, even with the fake everything you put on, even with the bodies that are not as tight as they once were. However, there's one thing men will not tolerate, and that is disrespect from you. Lot's wife was disrespectful. She was instructed not to look back, but she did, and we see what happened to her. She turned to dust. You know, I saw a video of Kevin Samuels. You know, Kevin Samuels, the dude y'all black women hate. And I saw this the other day, you know, just going through on YouTube shorts. And a woman was talking to him about how he needs to come across a little bit less harsh than he does. He said, well, okay, if that's what y'all women want, talk to your black man the same way you talk to your white boss. That black woman got quiet. You know, I have seen some of the most ridiculous things said by women who have been run through the cleaners. They have multiple kids by multiple men, but get upset with men who have their own standards of what they are looking for in a woman. Hey, men understand the body changes after birth. A lot of men who have never been married to want a woman whose body's still tight and have a certain shape. Hey, don't get mad at me. It is what it is. But you same women who complain about a man desiring a woman with a certain form are the same women who wanted a man who had nothing but smooth conversation and physical traits in your earlier years. You wanted a man with certain physical characteristics when you were younger, and you wouldn't accept anything less. You turned down a lot of good, decent men beforehand. But as you get older and you're not married, all of a sudden you have a problem with a man wanting a woman to meet certain physical characteristics. The feminist movement has messed up your thought process. The black mother thought process has messed up your thought process. And you might say, how's that? Many black mothers teach their daughters to go to school, get their degrees so they don't have to depend on no man, especially no black man. whereas other cultures are teaching their daughters to attend college with a goal of meeting a potential husband. And if she doesn't meet her mate while in college, go ahead and get the degree while she's there. The feminist movement told women to live their life without having to depend on a man. The Great Society told black women they could live their life without depending on a man. And black mothers taught their daughters to get a degree so they don't have to depend on a man. With all of these mechanisms in place, why would a man pursue you? Your mind has been fixated on not needing him. Let me explain something to you, woman. You need a man. And a man actually has a need to be needed. A man not only needs to have something to die for, but he also needs to have a reason to live. Men without vision get involved in so many destructive things when they're alone. A man's greatest need is to be respected by his woman. Not a lot of women, just one. Let me read something to you. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Now that's from 1 Samuel 15:23. A woman's greatest need is to be loved by one man, not many. See, in Isaiah 4:1, I've read this so much, I don't even need to pull a scripture to pull that, but it says, 7 women will come to one man asking to carry his last name. You see, these women were accomplished in society already, but one thing was missing: a good man. The plain vanilla, boring, foundational, traditional man, the principled man. How do we know they were accomplished? They said they had their own food and clothing. They said the man would not have to do anything else except give them his last name. You hear that? We don't even want you to do anything but give us your last name, brother. We don't want anything else. Just take away our disgrace. Take away our disapproval. Take away our shame. Please do that for us. And you know what I've heard from women who have lived a life of physical fun and glory? I just want to be married. This isn't hearsay. This is from women I personally know. And see, the etymology of the word reproach, which is used in the Bible in that verse in Isaiah, is scorn, contempt, or charged with a fault. See, that's serious. But do you know the biggest reason men and women refuse the plain, vanilla, bored men who have traditional values? It's written in Ephesians 5, starting at verse 22. Let me pull that. And see, those dreaded words keep men and women, especially black women, from the bonds of marriage. And what are those words? Woo, woo. I mean, I know what it says, but I want to read it to make sure I get it right. Verbatim. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head. The husband is the head of the wife. You see, therein lies the problem. You know what black women say? Ain't no Negro telling me what to do. Ain't no Negro in charge of me. I ain't listening to no Negro. If I want to do something, I ain't asking no Negro if it's okay. See, my wife understands this. And many people have actually taken issue with that. And they say from time to time, she can't do no thinking on. She got to ask Myron everything. Well, guess what happened before Myron makes a decision? I check with her. But see, the people that complain about my wife not being able to make decisions without me, without checking with me, can I tell you their relationship status? See, many people think I'm a pushover because I run things by my wife first. When you become a new creation, you can't run off and do things that you did like when you were single. See, the misunderstanding comes in because women don't understand the hedge of protection and the biblical line of authority. 1 Corinthians 14:40 said everything has to be done in an orderly fashion. What happens when you have two people fighting for control of anything? Disorder. What happens if a company has two CEOs giving directives at different times? Disorder. What happens if each spouse is making different decisions about money? Disorder. What happens if mom is telling the children one thing, dad is telling them the opposite? Disorder. So woman, you're causing disorder. Whether you like it or not, the husband is your head. Not a slave driver type head, but he is your authority as ordained by Yah. This is Yah's design. And what you need to realize is that you are not fighting a man's authority. You are fighting Yah's authority when you don't submit, when you don't recognize and respect him as the head. Now, I personally think it would be a good thing for women to get the book, The Power of a Praying Wife by Stormy O'Mardian. I bought that book for my wife years ago, and I bought myself a copy of the book, The Power of a Praying Husband, years ago. And see, when you start talking to a lot of women like this, then they start showing disdain for the Bible. You see where I'm going? In their 20s, the plain vanilla man's boring, and that's the problem. In the 30s, when the bad boys they spent their 20s with abandoning them, it's the bad boys' problem for not stepping up to the plate. When the bad boys abandon them and they see plain boring men and the boring men don't want them, it's the boring man's problem for not being able to handle a strong black woman. If she finds a man who is willing to share his life with her and he has traditional values that she doesn't want to submit to, he's the problem. When she finds a godly man who represents the Bible, she ain't submitting to no Negro because that's outdated, chauvinist, and oppressive thinking. And that Negro got a problem thinking I'm going to live my life like that under his thumbnail. When he shares with her what the Bible says, all of a sudden, the Bible is the problem. And all of that, there is one common denominator that refuses to look in the mirror and see where the problem lies. Good men try to talk to you in your 20s. You don't want them. Good men try to talk to you in your 30s. You don't want to talk to them kind of men because you still think you got it going on physically. In your 40s, when your body is bent out of shape many times and he doesn't desire that. You know, don't get mad at me. Your value decreases by decade when you have a lot of mileage on your body. I remember dating a young lady, and she lived about 10, maybe 15 minutes away from me at the time. And when she would come to my house, as she would leave, and I would, ask her to call and let me know she made it home safely. She literally told me that she didn't have to report to me. I wasn't asking her to report to me. I was literally concerned about her safety and well-being. So she would call me 2 or 3 hours later to let me know she made it home. I told her, look, I'm only concerned about your safety. So going forward, I need you to go home. Let your parents know that you left me for the evening and that you're going out with your other man. I told her, if something happens to you and you've told your parents you were with me, guess who your parents will come to if something happens. So you need to let them know you left my house and now you're going to see your other man. And see, that particular incident let me know that we were going to have a problem if that relationship kept going and I didn't address it early. Although we weren't married, I saw that she was going to be the type of woman who would have issues with her husband's headship. And there are a lot of other incidents I won't get into, but I knew there was no future with her and her so-called godly lifestyle that everyone seemed to envy. Now, oh yeah, she was a bona fide church girl on the surface, but to me, her spirit was ugly. I had even stopped taking her calls and the pages. We used to have pages back then. And I finally decided to call her back one day and she asked if I could stop by. So I stopped by her place to see what she wanted because I had mentally checked out at that point. And it had been months since I had talked to her. And she had the nerve to tell me that if I had not answered the page that she sent that time, that was it. And she would never call me again. Well, I helped her out. I never called her again and I never saw her again. For some reason, she thought she held all the cards. You see, I was always the boring, vanilla type guy. The one who held a steady job, the one with no children, the one brought up in the church, the one who showed total love to all the women in my life, my mother, my sister, my grandmother, my aunts. I didn't drink. I didn't curse. I didn't smoke cigarettes. I didn't get high. I didn't hang in the clubs. I hardly went to parties. I never got into any type of legal trouble. I DJ'd events on the weekend, which is more of a financial decision than an entertainment decision. I did furniture assembly when I would get off my regular job during the work week. I cut yards with my stepdad, but I wasn't what a lot of young women my age were looking for. A young lady who I went to college with used to be a mail carrier, and I just happened to look out the window one day, and she was the one delivering my mail. And she normally didn't work this area when she was substituting for somebody that day. And she had actually told me that she and her girlfriends had been talking just a few days prior, and she brought me up in a conversation. I asked, why was my name in your conversation? She said the question was asked, was there any guy in your life that you wish you would have given time to and gotten to know better? And she said she mentioned me. And I said, but you really didn't give me the time. She said, well, I know. But all of us girls at the time thought you were a very nice guy. We thought you were nice looking. Thought you had a nice body. And we all knew you were trying to do something with your life. She said, I had never met a guy who talked about goals sitting in college. And there you were talking about the future. And I was only interested in having a good time. Your ideas of fun and my ideas of fun were not the same. You didn't like alcohol. No, I told her, I said, I have my reason. She said, you didn't get high like other guys I knew. I said, I have my reason. She said, you didn't party a lot. You didn't go clubbing. And we all thought something was wrong with you because almost every college athlete that we knew was a party animal and drank, but not you. You see, for me, my idea of fun was hanging out with a young lady, just the two of us, enjoying her company. Hold on a second. Sorry about that phone call. I was actually almost through with the video when the phone rang, so I apologize for that. Now I got to remember where I was. But my idea of fun was hanging out with a young lady one-on-one and getting to know her, enjoying her company, taking in a movie, going go-kart riding, having a nice quiet dinner. You know, I'd rather sit one-on-one with a young lady and learn about her, what drives her, what motivates her, what she wants out of life. You know, I was speaking at an event, and as my usual thing to do after I give a talk, I take questions from the audience. And a young lady literally asked me in front of the entire room, was I married? You see, as I stated, men are rejecting relationships and marriage because they don't have the energy to fight with women. We as men don't want to do battle at home. We get enough fighting battles at work. Our home is supposed to be a safe and peaceful refuge for us. We would rather be alone than with a woman who causes strife. You know, Proverbs 21:9 and 25:24. I think both of them say it's better to live in a corner of a roof than in a house shared with a contentious woman. And you see, that shows how much a man is willing to stay away from a woman like that. He's willing to live on top of the roof of his house and be in a house with a woman who is quarrelsome and wants to compete with him, wants to struggle with him, fight him. You know, see, that's straight out of the Bible. And that's the type of stuff that, you know, that's kind of what the word contentious means. Men that actually relationships like this have actually had their spirits broken and crushed. And that's why we see men in society that allow women to walk all over them, not just their wives or girlfriends. You'll see it on the job. You'll see it in church. You'll see it out in public. You know, if a woman says something, the woman has broken his spirit so much that he's scared of all women. And we see that. These men need to grow up here. You know, how many of you cannot stand the sound of water constantly dripping? You know why you can't stand it? Because Proverbs 27:15 says a contentious wife is as bothersome as a continual dripping on a rainy day. Woman, we don't want to fight with you. We do that enough at work. We want to love you. I'll talk to you later.